On steps onto the sink machine looking so weak that everyone in the academy already treats him like trash. The commanders mock his body, and that humiliation hits even harder because this machine decides everything. It measures your synchronization with demonic power, the one result that proves whether you're an elite warrior, or just worthless. That's why when Situlu gets praised for her number, the whole academy starts acting like she's special. But the moment the test begins for Ong, the entire mood in the room changes. The readings start rising higher and higher, a terrifying pressure starts pouring out of his body, and the same people who were just laughing at him can only stare in shock as his aura crushes the hall. He's the monster that just made every top hunter in that academy look ordinary. A bloody hand clutches a red crystal. In the end, it all comes down to this single moment of failure. Humanity's strongest warrior lies broken in the jagged dirt, his body completely shattered and his lungs filling with the metallic taste of blood. He managed to slaughter every last 7-fin demon, leaving a mountain of twisted corpses in his wake. It was supposed to be the final, glorious victory for all of mankind. Instead, the man known as the ultimate protector can only stare at the gray sky, waiting for the cold dark to take him. The cost was far too high. He is dying alone in the silence. A massive shadow looms over the warrior. Just as his eyes start to glaze over, the ground begins to tremble under a weight that shouldn't exist. He realizes with absolute horror that the ancient records were completely wrong. Hidden within the isteel of the ancient king, a monstrous 8-fin demon emerges from the choking smoke. This creature is far more terrifying than anything he has ever faced. The warrior's hand trembles as the reality of his mistake sets in. He failed to understand the true depth of their power. This isn't just a simple oversight, it's a death sentence for the human race. Red eyes glow in the thick smoke. The beast towers over him with glowing yellow eyes that radiate pure, unfiltered malice. He desperately tries to move his fingers, but every muscle in his body is shredded and his mana is spent. Watching helplessly, he sees the demon raise its massive claw for the final killing blow. There is no hope left for a hero who has already given everything to a lost cause. One final, blinding strike tears through the air, erasing the last of his consciousness. Everything goes white as the strongest warrior is snuffed out like a flickering candle. Dark claw looms over a dying warrior. He waits for the final agony, wondering if the demon intends to feast on his soul as revenge for the thousands of subordinates he slaughtered. But the void doesn't stay black for long. A single point of light pierces the darkness, expanding until it consumes his entire field of vision. This isn't the cold end he prepared for, it's a roaring, white-hot sun. The blinding glare swallows his consciousness, erasing the memory of the battlefield and the smell of death. Heavy boots stomp on a cold floor. A thunderous shout of salute vibrates through the air, forcing his eyes wide open as his instincts scream at him to move. He isn't in the abyss anymore. He is standing in a massive, industrial hall filled with rows of rigid, disciplined soldiers. The confusion hits him harder than any demonic strike he ever endured. He was just a legendary hero in his final moments, but now he is surrounded by a metallic, high-tech environment. This is a world of cold steel, a far cry from the chaotic war zone he once ruled. Thin hands tremble against a pale face. He frantically feels his jaw and chest, searching for the rugged, battle-hardened muscles he spent a lifetime building. They have completely vanished. His powerful physique has been replaced by the scrawny, pathetic frame of an underdeveloped teenager. The shock of the transformation makes him want to scream as he realizes he's been completely stat-checked by fate. He looks down at his weak limbs, feeling the crushing weight of this new reality. The strongest warrior in the world is now trapped in the body of a bottom-tier recruit, and the road back to the top looks impossibly long. A scarred commander addresses a line of recruits. Ji Yao Tang, the leader of the 3rd Squadron in Helio City, towers over the new blood with an iron gaze. He begins a history lesson that every survivor knows by heart. Back in 3069, the world ended when the 6 steels of the ancient king cracked open. Thousands of demons flooded out, turning cities into slaughterhouses. Human flesh was nothing more than a snack for these monsters. Scientists harvest a glowing red core from a beast. Desperation eventually bred a brutal kind of innovation. Humanity realized they couldn't win with steel alone, so they developed grafting equipment. By ripping the internal cores out of fallen demons, they found a way to bridge the power gap. This tech allowed them to fuse monster essence into human bodies. It was a suicide gamble that actually paid off. They turned themselves into the very things they feared just to survive. A dark silhouette stands amidst swirling shadows. 60 years ago, one man stood above the rest. His name was Ong, the strongest soldier to ever draw breath. He took command of every warrior on the planet, leading a final, desperate charge against the endless demon tide. The battle raged for weeks, a meat grinder of blood and shattered bone. For a time, it looked like humanity would be completely erased from existence. Ong was the only wall standing between his people and total extinction. A wide, golden eye stares in absolute disbelief. The commander's voice fades as the truth hits like a physical blow. That war supposedly ended 60 years ago, bought with the blood of the heroes who fell. The peace everyone enjoys now was the price of Aang's final stand. But for the boy standing in this lineup, the memories of that battle are still fresh. He isn't just hearing a history lesson, he's realizing he's been dead for 6 decades. The legendary Ong has just woken up in a future that already forgot his face and his sacrifice. Ong stands atop a mountain of corpses. The instructor continues his speech, mourning the loss of the warriors who paved the way. He names Ong as the strongest spear humanity ever produced, a legend lost to the void. To the recruits, these are just stories to fuel their ambition. But for the boy in the back, the image of that bloody battlefield is still stained behind his eyelids. He knows the peace they enjoy was bought with a currency these children can't count. Recruits salute and shout in perfect unison. The hall echoes with the scream of, "Yes, sir," as they embrace their roles as the new pillars of hope. They see themselves as protectors of a golden age. One boy remains silent, staring at the floor as his mind drifts back to the finned ones. He whispers the name of the demons he once slaughtered, his voice a low, raspy murmur. This modern version of war feels like a sanitized play compared to the gritty reality he remembers. The scarred instructor looms over the boy. He stops his march, sensing the lack of discipline in the quiet recruit. He growls that the boy clearly doesn't understand what it truly means to be a warrior. The social hierarchy of the room shifts as the other recruits distance themselves from the target of the commander's ire. With a mechanical eye whirring, the man leans in close. He demands to know the boy's name, his presence meant to crush any lingering defiance. Ong looks up with sharp, golden eyes. The pressure in the room spikes as the boy considers his response. Dropping the name of a dead legend would shatter the reality of everyone in this building. He weighs the truth against his current frail body. The instructor freezes, his arrogant sneer faltering into a look of pure bewilderment. He sees a flicker of something ancient in the recruit's gaze. This isn't just a boy, it's a ghost from the front lines. The instructor's massive hand clamps down. He roars about desecrating a legend's name before slamming the boy into the cold concrete with bone-shattering force. Dust and blood spray as the floor cracks under the sheer weight of the assault. The boy gasps for air, his vision swimming while he curses this pathetic, fragile shell. He couldn't even track a basic strike from a low-level drill sergeant. It is a humiliating realization that his mind is a fortress of experience, but his current muscles are nothing but glass. The instructor turns his back. He dismisses the broken recruit like yesterday's garbage, his barked orders echoing through the sterile hall. The rest of the unit snaps to attention, their heavy boots thumping in a rhythm of fear and discipline. They are commanded to march toward the official warrior examination grounds immediately. This is the final filter designed to weed out the weak and the useless. Every recruit follows the harsh light pouring through the massive exit doors, leaving the boy behind in the dirt. Lon Sinuo reaches down with a smirk. He pulls the boy up from the floor, but his eyes are filled with nothing but pure condescension. He scoffs at the idea of a bottom-tier loser sharing the same name as the legendary Ong. Around them, the other candidates whisper and sneer, their judgments cutting deeper than the physical blows. To this crowd, the name Ong is a holy relic that deserves worship. They see a delusional weakling who thinks a name makes him a hero, and they can't wait to watch him fail the trial. Silver-haired girl walks away with a sneer. She dismisses the entire confrontation as nothing more than a childish tantrum. As her back turns, the crowd's whispers grow frantic, identifying her as the infamous Situ Lu. She isn't just another candidate, she's the cold-blooded demon from the noble Situ family of the Heluos region. Her reputation for ruthlessness precedes every step she takes. Ong watches her retreating figure, his golden eye narrowing in sharp focus. That name feels heavy and dangerous. It sounds like a memory buried deep under years of blood and grit. Large muscular candidate looks at Ong. He wonders how anyone in this sector could be ignorant of a high-born noble like Situ Lu. To the elites here, her family name is a terrifying warning sign, but to Ong, it's just another piece of a forgotten puzzle. He offers a brief, sincere thanks to the giant for the sudden assist. There is no ego in his voice, only the flat pragmatism of a survivor. They stand in the quiet wreckage of the moment, the massive social gap between them momentarily bridged by the shared chaos of the trial. Pink-haired girl waves her hands frantically. Suejo Yuhui practically vibrates with excitement as she tells the duo to ignore her presence and continue their intimacy. She isn't here for the hierarchy or the power struggle, she's only here for the material. In her distorted mind, the tense standoff between Ong and the giant was actually a scene of blossoming, flower-filled bromance. She clutches her camera with shimmering stars in her eyes, completely lost in a bizarre fantasy world. The big guy just stares at her in dead silence, mourning her wasted potential. It's a massive pity that such a talented recruit is a total, unfiltered dimwit. Ong stands confidently among the recruits. He cracks his knuckles with a smirk, convinced his elite soul can carry this pathetic shell. The man truly believes he's still the strongest soldier alive regardless of his new physical limits. Suddenly, the starter pistol cracks the air, signaling the beginning of the first evaluation. This long-distance run is a brutal test of pure perseverance. Ong lunges forward with a look of intense focus, determined to outpace every other trainee. He pushes his legs until they scream, desperate to maintain his dignity. Ong collapses face down on the track. The finish line becomes a scene of absolute public shame as he hits the dirt, gasping for air. He technically broke a record, but it's the record for the most pathetic performance in Academy history. This body is an absolute dumpster fire, proving to be even weaker than he initially feared. The instructor barks out the results for the entire crowd to hear, shouting that Ong is in dead last. Things only get worse during the arm strength test. A sickening pop echoes as Ong twists his wrist, rendering his limb completely useless before the leg test even begins. Lightning strikes behind a shocked Ong. The final scores arrive, and the verdict is a total, soul-crushing humiliation for the former legend. Ong is officially the top-ranked loser, technically coming in first place only if you count from the back of the pack. He looks like his soul has left his body while the crowd stares in judgmental silence. Even the photographer girl sighs, calling the skinny recruit a total waste of a good photo. An officer suggests cutting the boy immediately to clean up the ranks. However, Commander Yaotang intervenes with a sharp, commanding presence. He declares that even a monkey has the right to face the second assessment. The MC stares at the floor with a dark grin. The second test is announced, and it is all about synchronization frequency with the high-tech synthetic armor. This is the exact lifeline the boy needs. 60 years ago, he was an absolute legend who maintained a 96% sync rate. His current physique is a pathetic disaster, but synchronization is not a test of muscle. It is a test of pure, unrelenting willpower. Golden flames suddenly ignite in his eyes as he stands tall among the crowd. A thick, ghostly steam pours off his shoulders. He is finally ready to show them something real. The recruits enter a massive, sterile testing lab. High-tech machinery hums with power as the first group prepares for their synchronization. One recruit tests the weight, surprised at how light the metal feels on his frame. The digital screens flash a 39% frequency for the first attempt. It is a respectable number for a standard soldier, but the commanders are not impressed. The officers whisper about the true gap between commoners and martial families. They know the real monsters haven't even stepped up to the rigs yet. A girl with flowing silver hair steps into the center. Her gaze is freezing, looking at the other recruits like they are mere pebbles. The MC watches her from the back, recognizing that look of natural superiority. He thinks to himself that some people are just born to shine while others rot. She ignores the blushing boys around her entirely. On her chest, a bright green core begins to pulse with intense mana. She flips her long hair back and lets out a sharp, dismissive scoff. The social ladder is clear, and she sits at the very top. Footsteps climb up the metal stairs. She walks away under the harsh spotlight, leaving a trail of stunned, envious silence behind her. Everyone knows she is the strongest newbie this year. To the regular recruits, she represents a peak of nobility they can never hope to reach. They are merely the background characters in her world, meant to fill the seats. C watches the heavy mechanical doors groan shut as the atmosphere shifts. He takes a deep, shaky breath to steady his racing heart before the real, bloody trial begins. C wipes sweat from his forehead. He realizes that standing out too much might bring the wrong kind of dangerous attention, so toning down his output seems like the only way to survive the social ladder. He keeps his golden eyes low, wondering if a quiet life is even an option anymore. Suddenly, a heavy hand clamps onto his shoulder. A taller recruit grins with genuine excitement, claiming he can sense a raging vigor buried under C's slim physique. He is impressed that the boy isn't even trembling. C just looks away with a blank face, muttering that he is simply used to the crushing pressure of the bottom. A recruit screams in pure agony. The assessment quickly turns into a brutal torture chamber for the desperate first-timers as synthesization armor forces a violent gush of mana through their veins. Up on the monitor, a 12% synchronization flickers, marking the bare minimum for a pass. Each recruit must bear the crushing force emitted from the demonic monster core. A girl with pink hair collapses, wailing that she gives up. The staff marks her as a forfeit without a hint of mercy. In this room, if you can't hit a 10% sync, you are discarded like useless trash. A man's muscular chest wires up. The air in the testing bay thickens as the next recruit stabilizes his heart rate. On the monitor, a 30% synchronization frequency flashes in bright, bold text, signaling a massive success. This is the level of Suejo Yuhui, a standout of this elite group. The instructors watch with sharp, calculating eyes, noting that this batch possesses far better innate qualities than any other C-ranked regions. Results that shock the room begin to surface, proving the raw talent of these new soldiers. The bar is set high, and the pressure becomes suffocating. Recruits stand in a wide hall. While the elites celebrate, the instructors shift their cold gaze toward the bottom of the barrel. Not everyone is born with the gift of high-tier mana. A group of arrogant candidates starts jeering, pointing at a lone figure with absolute social contempt. These bullies mock him as the fool who finished dead last in every stage of the last assessment. Arrogant recruits tell him he hasn't even met a real imp yet, let alone a true monster. Their laughter is sharp and cruel, echoing off the metal walls. In their eyes, he's just a piece of useless trash that hasn't been thrown out yet. A black-clad man approaches the machine. The mockery fades into a tense, expectant silence as he ignores the insults. He steps toward the massive device containing the various demonic monster cores categorized by their battle origin. These stones are split into 6 distinct types, each carrying a different level of lethal energy. Without a hint of hesitation or fear, the reject reaches out for the most volatile option available. This underdog chooses the red core, a move that seems completely suicidal for a low-ranked failure. The entire crowd holds its breath, waiting for the core to tear his body apart. Colorful icons explain the core types. While red represents raw strength and blue marks nimbleness, the hierarchy of power goes much deeper than simple physical stats. Purple stones grant supernatural abilities, but the black core is a near-mythical rarity that controls time and space. Most recruits stick to the basics to avoid burning out. The reject, however, isn't looking for safety or a participation trophy. He stares down the red stone like it's his only lifeline in a world designed to crush him. Hand slots red core into armor. Grabbing the most volatile option available is a death wish for most, but synchronization is all about sheer, unyielding willpower. The machine clicks, locking the core against his chest as searing energy floods his entire nervous system like molten lead. Veins light up with a golden, demonic charge that tests the very limits of his physical resistance. Synthesization hits 100%, and the suit hums with newfound, lethal potential. This failure just finished his transformation into something terrifying. Red lights bathe the resting area. The heavy air of the facility shifts as the process concludes, drawing curious eyes from across the entire training deck. A girl with silver hair watches the monitors in total disbelief, her breath hitching as she recognizes the face on the screen. It is the same boy everyone dismissed as a total waste of space just hours ago. Her eyes widen because the data on the display doesn't lie. Something impossible is happening right under their noses. MC eyes glow behind the visor. The crowd gathers near the railing, sensing a shift in the atmosphere that they can't quite explain yet. An arrogant elite steps forward, mocking the spectacle and promising to show everyone what a real soldier looks like. Suddenly, the underdog's eyes snap open with a terrifying, golden light that silences the room. This isn't a mistake, it's a total stat check against the entire room's arrogance. The strongest soldier just arrived, and he's the one they all laughed at. Scientists stare at the glowing monitors. The synchronization frequency isn't just rising, it's exploding upward at an impossible rate. It hits 40% in a single heartbeat, leaving the lab technicians breathless and scrambling for answers. Hidden beneath the interface, a sharp, predatory smirk forms on the recruit's face. He remembers a time when his frequency reached a legendary 96%. Red energy surges through the connection cables like molten lava, vibrating with raw power. He isn't just testing the armor anymore, he's reclaiming a throne they tried to take away. Digital screens flash higher percentage numbers. The numbers on the terminal keep climbing without any sign of stopping for air. It hits 50, then 60, shattering every expectation these rookies held on to. The arrogant elite who was just mocking him stands frozen, cold sweat pouring down his terrified face. He starts stammering about malfunctions, convinced the machine must be broken because his ego can't handle the truth. Behind him, the other recruits begin to panic, whispering frantic accusations of cheating. They can't accept that the person they ridiculed is actually a monster in disguise. A golden eye fills the frame. This is the official return of the king, the strongest soldier who once commanded absolute reverence from every man on the front lines. He knows his true, unbridled aura should be enough to force every person in this room to collapse onto their knees in submission. His golden eye snaps open with a terrifying intensity, radiating a physical pressure so heavy the floor seems to groan. The air in the room turns cold, thick, and completely stagnant. As his spirit descends like a falling star into the armor, the social hierarchy is finally restored. They wanted a show, and now they are witnessing the birth of a legend. Red energy swirls around a falling figure. Aang feels his legendary strength vanish into a void of jagged crimson light as his consciousness starts to slip. His mind screams for control, but this underdeveloped physique is an absolute dumpster fire. The red core pulses with a violent, unstable rhythm, sending shocks through his nervous system that feel like molten lead. He reaches out with thin, trembling fingers, his vision blurring as his lungs seize up from the pressure. Every muscle in his frame is screaming in pure, unfiltered agony. This pathetic body simply cannot endure the sheer weight of a hero's soul. A hand taps on a digital tablet. The technical staff scrambles to explain the chaotic spikes of mana that just threatened to blow the entire testing rig apart. They desperately claim the armor was malfunctioning and the red core was defective from the moment it was slotted into the suit. Commander Ji Yaotang watches the flickering screen with a heavy, unreadable gaze as the lead scientist dismisses the anomaly. They insist the fluctuating data was just a series of random, broken numbers caused by a hardware glitch. The official frequency is adjusted down to a pathetic 10%. The legendary peak everyone thought they saw is officially written off as a ghost in the machine. Recruits laugh from the high balcony. A wave of condescending jeers washes over the testing bay as the elites celebrate Aang's public humiliation. They mock the idea of a bottom-tier loser ever matching a high-ranking commander's synchronization frequency. In their arrogant minds, the social hierarchy has finally been restored, and the trash is right back where he belongs. Ong lies sprawled on the concrete floor with swirly eyes, looking like he's just been through a heavy-duty meat grinder. The large muscular recruit rushes over, hovering over him with a frantic expression to see if he's still alive. Even with a passing mark, Ong is now the favorite joke of the entire academy. Silver-haired girl peeks over a ledge. Situ Lu lets out a dismissive huff, though her eyes betray a flicker of genuine panic. She actually thought, for a split second, that a low-tier nobody from this backwater region had managed to outshine her noble talent. Nearby, Ong stands in the wreckage of the testing bay, staring at his trembling hands with a look of pure confusion. He wonders why he let his old warrior pride drag him into a petty competition with these children. He was lucky to survive the mana surge, let alone pass the synchronization. In the background, Suejo Yuhui is still snapping photos with her camera, her eyes forming little hearts at the sheer romantic drama of the fallen hero. Ong sits alone on a cold bench. He clutches the metallic casing of his suit, staring at the faint red glow of the exhausted core embedded in his chest. It feels like a single sudden breath just drained every ounce of strength he had stored deep within his soul. This level of physical exhaustion is a first for the former legend, and it tastes like bitter defeat. He knows that a low-tier stone shouldn't have shattered under his spiritual pressure, yet it crumbled like brittle glass. Something is fundamentally broken with this new body's capacity to hold mana. His golden eyes narrow as he searches for a reason, but the cold, industrial hum of the testing facility offers no comfort. A thunderous shout of attention rings out. The recruits snap into rigid, trembling lines as Ji Yaotang marches into the hall, his presence radiating the lethal weight of a dozen battlefields. He congratulates the survivors for reaching the final, bloody gate of the exam, real combat practice. The atmosphere turns ice cold as the commander reveals they are about to face a live demonic monster for the very first time. He looks over the recruits with sharp, predatory eyes, wishing them a smooth and safe trial while knowing most will fail. Behind him, the holographic displays flash the jagged silhouettes of the beasts they'll be hunting. The training wheels are finally coming off, and for these rookies, the line between a passing grade and a gruesome death has just vanished. Recruits march toward a massive hallway. The commander's voice booms across the sterile facility, ordering every soul to move to the third assessment field in their assigned rows. These trainees scramble into rigid lines, their heavy boots thumping in a frantic, uneven rhythm against the cold industrial floor. For most of these kids, the reality of the situation is finally starting to sink in like a lead weight. They aren't just transitioning to another simple test. They are being funneled into a social filter designed to snap their spirits and discard the weak. Each desperate step echoes with the crushing weight of their uncertain future as they sprint toward the next brutal evaluation. A blond man stares at a monitor. He holds a jagged red crystal firmly in his gloved hand while his gaze remains locked onto the data streaming across a handheld tablet. Among the sea of mediocre statistics, one silhouette stands out, moving with a grounded, predatory confidence that doesn't belong to a bottom-tier recruit. It is Ong, the boy everyone just ridiculed, now appearing like a flickering ghost on the thermal sensors. The officer mutters to himself that this particular outlier has piqued his curiosity in a way no low-ranked commoner ever should. While the arrogant crowd sees a weakling, the man with the crystal sees a shadow that moves with the lethal precision of a veteran who has already died once. Ji Yaotang narrows his yellow eyes. The scarred commander stands tall and declares that the next phase is the official hunt outside the wall amidst the suffocating, dense fog. High above the massive fortress, a solitary black crow glides over the sprawling, walled-in city, looking down at the tiny, vulnerable figures of soldiers waiting below. This is the exact moment where the sanitized training ends and the bloody reality of the demon tide begins for real. A thunderous command to open the gates shakes the very foundations of the courtyard, vibrating through the boots of every terrified recruit. As the massive steel barriers slowly groan and slide apart, they are met with a chilling, metallic wind from the wasteland beyond. The time for games is over, and the era of raw survival has officially arrived. Recruits walk through massive steel gates. Sunlight from the wasteland hits the group like a physical weight, blinding those who have never stepped beyond the safety of the city walls. One rookie whispers about this being his first time out, his voice shaking with a mix of awe and terror. The veteran guards don't care about his sentiment. An instructor barks at the group to shut their mouths and focus on their armor synchronization. This is the edge of civilization, and noise is just an invitation for a quick death. Ong stares at the red core. He feels a strange, hollow sensation in his chest, wondering why his legendary strength dipped so sharply during the synchronization test. It felt like something deep within his soul actively rejected the demonic energy. He descends the metal stairs into the testing facility, his boots clicking rhythmically against the cold floor. This body is a puzzle he hasn't solved yet. If transmigration comes with these kinds of physical repercussions, he is in much more danger than he initially realized. Golden eyes narrow in the dark. The atmosphere shifts instantly as Ong enters the combat zone, his survival instinct screaming that he is no longer the hunter. He moves into a pitch-black corridor where red sensor lines pulse across the ground like a digital heartbeat. The silence here is heavy and unnatural, smelling of stale air and old blood. He can feel the static of the monster cores nearby, vibrating through the soles of his shoes. This isn't just a simple training exercise, it's a meat grinder designed to weed out the weak. Monstrous wolves emerge from shadows. Their white eyes glow with a feral hunger that no simulation could ever hope to replicate. Suddenly, the pack lunges forward, their silhouettes blurring into streaks of lethal speed across the radar-lit floor. Aang barely has time to react before a massive claw tears through the air toward his throat. The first true encounter since his rebirth has officially begun. He isn't the apex predator anymore, and these beasts are desperate to taste the blood of a fallen legend. Skulls litter a dark, torchlit cave. A suffocating vision of the abyss grips the room as a monstrous silhouette emerges from the shadows. This isn't a low-level grunt, it's a demonic predator with a rank that defies common logic. Situ Lu's face goes pale, her noble pride crumbling under the weight of an entity far higher tiered than her own soul. She stammers that this is impossible, her body locking up as the sheer malice of the beast vibrates through the floor. It is a primal fear that leaves the elite recruits gasping for air. Aang's golden eyes glow with intensity. While the others are paralyzed by the mental assault, Aang's inner self begins to resonate deeply with the surrounding world. It's like a dormant engine finally catching a spark, aligning his mana with the flow of reality. He blinks, looking at the stunned silver-haired girl and asks if she's actually going to move. Situ Lu can only stare at him in disbelief, unable to process how this recruit remains unfazed. Aang offers a casual, "My bad," masking the fact that he just stared into the void and didn't blink. Recruits march through a massive industrial gate. The instructor's barked orders break the tension, signaling the start of the team-based trials. Sinuo and Yuhui are shoved toward the back, officially paired with Aang to form a squad of social outcasts. On the official scrolls, this group looks like a total failure waiting to happen. They follow the line of soldiers toward the training grounds, their heavy boots thumping against the dry earth. The massive doors groan open, revealing a jagged wasteland where the weak are destined to be erased. Pink-haired Yuhui leans close to Aang. She vibrates with excitement, her camera forgotten as she corners the boy with a playful, wide-eyed grin. She whispers if his little performance back there was just a secret strategy to ensure they stayed together as a team. Aang frantically tries to explain himself, but his legendary warrior instincts are useless against her bubbly interrogation. She sees a budding friendship where he sees a tactical nightmare. The social gap doesn't matter to her, she's just happy to have a front row seat to the chaos he's about to cause. A silver-haired girl walks away. Situ Lu leaves the scene without a backward glance, her presence lingering like a cold draft. The giant recruit steps up to Aang, offering a firm hand and a supportive, "Let's do our best." He doesn't see a loser, he sees a teammate worth his time. Meanwhile, Suejo Yuhui is vibrating with joy, snapping photos and declaring their grouping a total success. It's a bizarre alliance formed in the shadow of the upcoming trial. Aang just rolls with it, his mind already shifting to the next lethal hurdle. A massive black stone tower looms. This monument isn't just for show, it's crafted from a special material designed to peel back the deadly fog. The instructors announce the third assessment will be a group exercise of 4 members each. Their mission is simple and suicidal: hunt beyond the protective walls and survive the mist. Soldiers begin distributing essential gear to each squad, the tension in the air turning thick and metallic. Every recruit knows the safety of the city ends at that gate. Gloved hands hold a glowing canister. This is the fog dispersal armor, a portable version of the monument's power. It creates a small bubble of safety, but the light it provides is a beacon for every hungry thing in the dark. The instructors point toward a distant, lighted area that serves as their final extraction point. Along the way, they must slaughter unfinned demonic monsters to prove their worth. Individual skill is important, but their final grade depends on their ability to act as a single, lethal unit. Shadows shift within a gray haze. This fog is the last behemoth humanity hasn't conquered, a shroud that hides ancient, predatory nightmares. Aang and his mismatched crew charge into the gloom, their hearts hammering against their ribs. Glowing red eyes flicker in the distance, marking the position of monsters that haven't tasted human blood in years. This test requires more than just high stats, it demands a heart of iron that won't crack when the screaming starts. Suddenly, the mist parts, and as they gain vision, the true scale of the ambush is revealed. Recruits stand atop a massive corpse. This wasn't just a basic exercise, it was a brutal massacre meant to forge the title of a soldier through sheer blood. As the dust settles, a booming announcement declares that the assessment has officially ended for the first wave. The survivors catch their breath in the jagged dirt while the next group is ordered to prepare for the meat grinder. High above the training grounds, the observers acknowledge a surprising trend. It seems this batch actually contains quite a few talented newbies who might actually survive the demon tide. High heels stand on a ledge. Second Commander Dada Jiao of the Heluos region looks down with a sharp, aristocratic gaze. She is primarily interested in the performance of Situ Lu, expecting the girl to uphold her family's lethal reputation. Beside her, First Commander Chiao watches the field with a more analytical focus. He knows that descendants of martial families are fostered specifically to become renowned legends. To these officers, the social hierarchy is as rigid as steel, and only those with the elite bloodlines are expected to reach the peak of this generation. Ong stands calmly among the crowd. Xiao crosses his arms, his internal alarm bells screaming as he spots a massive anomaly on the scanners. There is another recruit whose presence is starting to warp the gravity of the room. Ong looks up with a sharp, confident smirk, his golden eyes burning with an ancient, terrifying intensity. This isn't the face of a low-ranked loser. It's the return of a king who has been dead for 60 years. The commander realizes with absolute shock that there was nothing wrong with the high-output red core. He can only stare in silence, wondering what kind of monster he just accidentally unleashed into the ranks. The boy who was supposed to be trash is now the most dangerous man in the room. A red-haired girl leans into view. Jiao asks Commander Ji Yaoteng what is on his mind while he turns a bright shade of red. This is the playful side of the military hierarchy we rarely see during the trials. She teases him with the nickname Tang Tang, sending the stone-faced leader into a sputtering, blushing rage. He snaps back, demanding she stop using that embarrassing name in front of the troops. It is a brief moment of grounded contrast before the weight of the coming war settles back onto their shoulders. Even the most hardened commanders have a soft spot that can be exploited by the right person. Ji Yaoteng stares at the horizon. His focus shifts back to the grim reality of the upcoming warrior evaluation in the forest. The staff confirms that the field has been cleared of any high-level threats to ensure the recruits survive their first day. They have spent days scouring the Helios region to make sure only unfinned demonic monsters are roaming the trial grounds. To these officers, a single finned demon is a death sentence for any untrained trainee. They believe they have created a perfectly controlled environment, unaware that the rules of safety are about to be shattered by the boy they just dismissed as trash. A blue-haired officer smirks with purple eyes. He notes that if a one-finned monster actually showed up, the instructors would have to sacrifice their lives just to protect the new blood. It is a chilling reminder of the massive power gap between average humans and the demonic tide. They walk along the stone path together, discussing the heavy, silent burden of guardianship. Their mission is to preserve the future of humanity at any cost. They see themselves as the ultimate shield for these children, yet they have no idea that the strongest spear in history is currently standing in their safe lineup. Red demonic hands claw through the dark. The screen flashes with the weight of a coming evolution as the title card drops like a guillotine. Back at the arena, the speakers crackle to life, announcing that the current group's assessment is officially over. The dust settles on the field as the next batch of terrified recruits is ordered to step forward into the light. The instructors bark for the next unit to get ready for their trial by fire. Ong tightens his grip and narrows his eyes, knowing that his pathetic body is about to face its first real test of survival in this era. Recruits stand ready for the trial. The instructors toss a heavy sensor toward the line, testing their raw reflexes before the real sprint begins. Aang's hand snaps out, catching the metal device with a precision that surprises even himself. He stares at the cold steel, realizing his instincts are still razor-sharp even if his muscles are lagging behind. This isn't just a race, it's a showcase of who belongs at the top of the food chain. Silver hair blurs past the crowd. Situ Lu doesn't wait for a signal, launching herself forward like a coiled spring. She taunts the others to keep up, her voice dripping with the effortless confidence of a true noble. One of the male recruits grits his teeth in a visible rage, cursing her constant need for the spotlight. He knows that in this world, being second place is just another way of saying you're irrelevant. The group surges forward, desperate to catch the shadow of a girl who was born to lead. Boots hammer against the dry earth. Situ Lu moves with a fluid grace that makes the other candidates look like they're running through waist-deep mud. Her movements are a masterclass in efficiency, every stride eating up the distance with terrifying ease. Dust clouds explode behind her heels as she pushes the pace. She leaps through the air, her silhouette cutting a sharp line against the pale sky. To the watching crowd, she isn't just a student, she's a predator in a room full of prey. The gap between the martial families and the commoners has never looked wider. A heavy core slams into place. Situ Lu finishes the run by driving her sensor into the pedestal with enough force to crack the surrounding stone. Suejo Yuhui watches from the sidelines, her eyes wide as she analyzes the sheer technical perfection of the move. She notes that even though the girl's core is still recovering, her raw physique is already on par with high-tier agility builds. This is the terrifying reality of a martial arts lineage. The sheer power gap leaves the rest of the unit standing in a stunned, suffocating silence. They don't just train, they are engineered for total battlefield dominance. Red demons swarm the battlefield. Ong barks a sharp command to Lan Sinuo, his voice cutting through the roar of the monsters. The boy responds instantly, shouting that he is on it as he launches into the air like a guided missile. A golden aura erupts around Lan Sinuo, turning his body into a lethal, spinning drill that shreds the atmosphere. From a distance, the scene is a blur of dust and high-speed silhouettes carving through the red tide. They are not just fighting for survival, they are executing a tactical purge. The coordination between the two is a gritty reminder that talent alone cannot replace the instinct for blood. Golden energy shatters a demon's skull. Aang steps into the pocket, his fist connecting with a beast's chest with the weight of a falling mountain. He holds a concentrated orb of mana in his palm, his golden eyes reflecting the absolute terror of the creatures lunging at him. A massive demon is slammed face first into the concrete, the impact cratering the floor and sending shards of stone flying. Aang watches Lan Sinuo's movements with a critical eye, impressed by how the boy utilizes every ounce of his armor strength. This is a total stat check delivered with the technical perfection of a seasoned veteran. The social gap between these elites and the monsters is widening with every bone-snapping strike. Daggers spin in a blur. Aang twirls his blade with a dark, predatory intent, ordering the team to systematically dismantle every last monster in the vicinity. Suejo Yuhui gives a cheerful, almost playful confirmation while Situ Lu maintains her mask of icy indifference. Their boots drum against the dirt in a rhythmic, high-speed charge that signals the end for the remaining demons. Situ Lu leaps through the air, her silver hair trailing behind her as she readies a killing blow with her dagger. The trio functions like a well-oiled machine of destruction, proving that even a bottom-tier recruit can lead a squad of monsters. They leave no room for error, only a trail of cooling corpses and the silence of total victory. Aang's sharp golden eyes narrow in focus. He isn't just watching a fight, he's calculating every opening for the perfect execution. Beside him, Situ Lu becomes a silver hurricane of blades and mana. She carves through a massive red-skinned demon, her speed leaving jagged trails of white light across the battlefield. Delivery, she screams, launching herself forward with a kick that sends a monster spiraling into the gray sky. A heavy, bone-crunching impact follows. The air itself seems to shatter as another demon is pulverized against the dirt. She isn't just moving, she's dancing through a slaughterhouse. This level of violence is a wake-up call to every arrogant recruit watching. Thick dust clouds settle over the crater. Up on the observation deck, the instructors lean over the railing in total disbelief at the carnage. One researcher adjusts his glasses, muttering about how these two are actually cooperating like seasoned veterans. He focuses specifically on Situ Lu, analyzing the pulse of her blue agility core. To his trained eye, her body is moving in a perfect, lethal rhythm that defies the standard logic of a recruit. The social gap between these elites and the commoners has never looked wider than in this moment of raw power. He gets a bit too close to the screen, earning a sharp, territorial roar from Ji Yaotang. The scarred commander demands the man keep his eyes off the girl and focus on the data. Situ Lu's silver eyes flare with cold light. She doesn't give the demons a second to breathe or regroup after that initial assault. In one fluid motion, she leaps high above the remaining cluster of beasts, her white hair flowing like a banner of war. Her daggers glow with a sickeningly bright green aura as she begins her final descent. She stabs downward, burying her steel into a demon's skull with a sickening, wet crunch. A massive explosion of yellow energy erupts from the point of impact, vaporizing everything in a 10-foot radius. The beast lets out one final, distorted roar before being completely erased from existence. The area falls into a heavy, expectant silence as the last of the mana dissipates into the wind. The strongest warrior has finally found a partner who can actually keep up with his pace. Silver-haired girl slides across the dirt. Situ Lu proves she isn't just a noble name by becoming a walking hurricane of mana. She stares down the remaining threats with a cold, detached gaze that promises a swift end. With a single, sharp command to explode, she detonates her stored energy into a green shockwave. The monsters vanish into a spray of essence, leaving only scorched earth behind her. She makes the slaughter look like a high-end fashion show. GoldenEye flashes in the shadows. The digital display flickers to round 3, pitting the legendary soul of Aang against the next demonic wave. He doesn't waste energy on flashy displays or noble monologues. Instead, he locks onto the red beast with a predatory focus that would make a veteran soldier sweat. His mind calculates the geometry of the kill, identifying the neck and chest as the primary vital points. This isn't a brawl, it's a surgical removal of a biological threat. Black blade tears through red flesh. Aang moves like a shadow in a wind tunnel, reappearing behind the beast instantly. The demon's massive frame is a training dummy for his ancient techniques. One strike. Bone severs, sinew shreds. A single, horizontal line of light marks the kill. The beast falls in jagged pieces, a victim of skill that shouldn't exist in this timeline. He isn't just fighting, he is reclaiming his status as the absolute peak of the battlefield. Dust settles around a crouching figure. Aang feels his lungs burning and his muscles trembling as the internal feedback loops begin to redline. He acknowledges the crushing reality that this weak shell has a hard limit on its raw explosiveness. It is a pathetic limitation for a man who used to shatter mountains. Instead of retreating, he realizes the beast just got stat-checked by a ghost. His eyes glow a deep, threatening red as he dives back into the fray. This recruit is finally done playing soldier. Blue energy streaks trail Aang's movement. He pushes his body to the limit, feeling the ghost of his past life clawing at his current shell. Inside his mind, a demonic evolution takes root, threatening to consume the boy he used to be. Red hands of mana reach out from the abyss, marking the moment his soul begins to warp under the pressure. He isn't just a recruit anymore, He's a catalyst for something dangerous. A red demon roars in fury. The beast lunges with a bone-chilling scream, but Ong is already moving. He blurs through the air, narrowly dodging a massive claw that would have turned a normal human into red mist. Even with his legendary instincts, he grits his teeth and admits he didn't respond quite fast enough. This pathetic, underdeveloped physique is a cage that keeps him from reaching his peak. He flips over the monster's back, searching for a single opening. Impact sparks fly from the monster. Ong delivers a heavy kick to the demon's flank, but the blow lacks the mountain-shattering weight he remembers. He curses his poor body coordination, feeling the lag between his mind's command and his muscles' execution. The monster's jagged teeth snap inches from his throat as the struggle turns into a desperate grind. He reaches for his weapon, calling for a retrieval as the blade slides back into his grip. This isn't a clean kill, it's a battle for air. A white light severs the beast. Ong slams his dagger home, a blinding streak of energy carving through the demon's core. The beast falls in a heap of cooling flesh, its threat silenced by the technical perfection of a master. He lands firmly on the dirt, his breathing heavy as the dust finally settles. In the background, Situlu and the others stand frozen, unable to comprehend the violence they just witnessed. The social gap hasn't just closed, it's been demolished. Pink-haired girl holds a camera. Suejo Yuhui snaps photos like she's witnessing a miracle, while Situlu wonders who this scrawny kid actually is. Up on the observation balcony, Jiao Tang narrows his eyes, his gaze heavy with suspicion. He mutters that the boy doesn't move like a rookie, he moves like a veteran who has spent decades on the front lines. The commanders are finally starting to see the shadow of the legend beneath the weak exterior. Ong stares at his trembling hands. The high of the kill fades, leaving him with a bitter realization about his physical limits. He acknowledges that this pathetic frame simply cannot handle even one of his true martial techniques. It's a frustrating hurdle for a former king, but he knows he has to adapt quickly or get buried in the dirt. He is a tiger trapped in a house cat's body, forced to play by new, weaker rules. A black boot crushes the sand. Ong locks his golden eyes on the next target, declaring that its time has finally run out. Suddenly, a jagged red spike erupts from the earth as his inner mana begins to flare with a violent rhythm. His vision sharpens, focusing on the flow of energy that the children around him can't even perceive. The air around him starts to vibrate with a lethal, concentrated pressure that signals a total stat check is incoming. Massive tree roots encircle the squad. The battlefield turns into a cage of twisted wood as Situlu screams about being trapped. Before the panic can settle, Ong launches a strike that shatters the silence. A demonic skull is pulverized under the weight of a raw, bone-snapping impact. Red blood sprays against the gray fog as he systematically dismantles the ambush with terrifying efficiency. He isn't just surviving the trial, he's teaching these monsters why they should fear the return of a legend. Red energy streaks across the sky. The horizon bleeding crimson signals a total tactical nightmare for the Heluos region. A high-ranking officer's yellow eyes go wide with absolute terror as he spots the anomaly through the haze. He realizes the impossible has happened. A one-fin demon has breached the perimeter. This isn't a training drill anymore. Retreat to the city, he screams. The social order of the academy vanishes instantly. Raw survival takes over. Figures blur down the steep slopes. Blue energy eruptions shake the very foundation of the fortress walls as the instructors engage. Dust clouds swallow the battlefield whole. Dada Jiao plunges into the chaos with a lethal, aristocratic focus. She knows the recruits are just raw meat for a monster of this rank. Every second counts now. One mistake means a gruesome death. The air is thick with the suffocating, metallic scent of pulverized stone and demonic mana. Ong stares into the dark haze. A guttural, distorted voice echoes through the suffocating silence of the ruins. The monster is actually talking. It smells something impossible on the boy. A human with a demonic scent. Aang's golden eyes flare with an ancient, predatory heat. He doesn't look afraid. He looks ready. What is it saying? A massive, bone-crunching strike connects. Blood sprays the earth in jagged arcs. The legend is finally awake. His soul is starting to outpace his pathetic frame. 3 recruits stare up in horror. Situlu and the others realize they aren't facing a standard grunt anymore. This is a one-fin demon. The atmosphere turns heavy as the beast radiates a level of malice that makes the previous kills look like a playground. Ong grits his teeth, his forehead slick with sweat as he feels the crushing weight of the demon's aura. It is the first time his legendary mind has had to process the raw, physical oppression felt by an average warrior. This body is locking up, paralyzed by a biological fear that his warrior pride can't simply ignore. A jagged claw pulses with red energy. The demon lunges with a speed that blurs the air, its fingers glowing like molten embers. A massive red flash consumes the frame, sending the trainees flying like ragdolls into the dirt. They are completely outclassed by the raw output of a finned entity. Dust and debris choke the air as the recruits scramble to maintain their footing against the shockwave. The social hierarchy of the battlefield has been reset, and right now, everyone is just prey. A monster's white skull snarls forward. One of the recruits screams in a desperate, wide-eyed panic as the beast's tail whips through the landscape. Suddenly, a cold bite echoes across the clearing as a massive, world-shaking impact craters the ground. A pillar of dark energy erupts, and just as quickly as it appeared, the demonic pressure vanishes into the mist. Situ Lu and Nong are left standing in the wreckage, gasping for air while staring at the empty forest floor. The monster didn't just leave, it retreated with a chilling level of intelligence that haunts the silence. Two figures look over a lush valley. They stand on the edge of a rocky cliff, looking down at the dense greenery where the trail went cold. The adrenaline is still humming in their veins, but the lethal threat has completely evaporated into the landscape. One of them mutters that the trail stopped right here. The trial isn't just about killing anymore, it's about figuring out why a high-level predator just spared their lives in the heart of the wasteland. Red-haired woman looks down at trees. Dada Jiao's eyes narrow as she questions how a Fin demon could appear in a zone Tang Tang spent days clearing. She knows the scarred commander is never careless, making this anomaly a terrifying breach of military protocol. Xiao, also known as Joel, doesn't wait for an answer as he launches himself into the valley below. The two officers land in a blur of motion, their presence radiating the lethal pressure of high-tier warriors. Dada Jiao scans the empty clearing, her voice rising in a panicked shout to find the missing recruits. The social order of the academy is falling apart as the realization of the danger finally sinks in. Blonde commander shouts with wide eyes. Ji Yaotang is a frantic mess, his face twisting as he demands they continue the pursuit immediately. He cannot accept that the monsters have slipped through his fingers while the lives of the rookies hang in the balance. Joel stands firm, his calm demeanor acting as a cold anchor against the commander's rising hysteria. He flatly states that the trail has ended, and the predators have vanished into the gray fog. Ji Yaotang drops to his knees, touching the cracked earth as if searching for a miracle in the dust. He knows that charging blindly into unexplored territory is a death sentence even for a man of his rank. Hand reaches out in a dark vision. A suffocating memory of a child crying out for his brother flashes across the screen, revealing the trauma driving Ji Yaotang's desperation. He slams his fist into the stone floor with a thunderous crack, shattering the ground beneath his weight. The legendary strength he usually uses to protect others is now just a tool for his own self-destruction. He bows his head in the dirt, his pride as a commander completely erased by the weight of his perceived failure. He whispers that it is all his fault for letting this happen. The elite guard of the fortress has been broken by the shadow of the demon tide. Red-haired woman comforts the kneeling commander. Dada Jiao leans over the broken Ji Yaotang, her voice softening as she calls him by that playful nickname. She tells him no one wanted this tragedy to strike those 4 recruits. A gloved hand rests on his shoulder, a silent anchor in his sea of guilt. Jiao promises to continue the search, but Tang Tang isn't listening to reason anymore. He is drowning in the realization that his leadership led them into a death trap. The air is thick with failure. Blue-haired officer watches Tang Tang stand up. Xiao notes it would be bad if all the commanders vanished, suggesting they send a search squad later. Ji Yaotang isn't interested in waiting for bureaucracy. The commander's yellow eye flashes with a sudden, lethal intensity that stops the officer mid-sentence. He is already pushing himself off the ground, his posture shifting from defeat to predatory focus. Before anyone can stop him, he sprints into the gray wasteland alone. He moves like a blur of desperate vengeance, his silhouette swallowed by the fog. Two officers talk about the commander's past. Dada Jiao watches the horizon, her smile fading into a weary sigh. She reveals that Tang Tang's brother was snatched by demons years ago, leaving a hole in his soul that never healed. Every time he sees a recruit in danger, he relives that original trauma. Those kids weren't just soldiers, they were ghosts of the sibling he couldn't save. He blames himself for every life the abyss claims. It's a heavy burden that drives him to the edge. Jagged rocks frame a pitch-black cavern. Aang blinks through the darkness, his vision swimming as he realizes he's trapped in a massive underground nest. The damp walls echo with the rhythmic breathing of his teammates, still bound and unconscious beside him. He realizes with a jolt of adrenaline that they aren't dead yet, just stored like livestock for a later meal. This isn't the wasteland surface, it's the belly of the beast. His golden eyes narrow as he begins to analyze their prison. Survival starts now. Aang wakes up to a monster's face. His eyes snap open to a total nightmare as a distorted voice rasps, questioning how he managed to wake up so soon. A massive, jagged claw hovers inches from his throat, belonging to a Fin demon that should never be in a beginner training zone. The beast towers over him with a terrifying, calm intelligence, noting that his recovery speed is impressive. Aang's golden eyes flare with a mix of shock and lethal calculation. He is pinned against the rough bark of a nest, staring into the abyss of a high-tier threat while his physique still feels like lead. Aang is trapped in a pulsating nest. The surrounding cavern walls seem to breathe, covered in a sickening, organic membrane that swells with a rhythmic thump. Red light flickers from the demon's armor cores, casting long, jagged shadows across the recruit's trapped frame. This isn't just a simple prison, it's a larder, and the heavy swell of the walls suggests something massive is being fed nearby. A close-up reveals a veiny, pulsating surface that radiates an aura of pure malice. Somewhere in the dark, a voice trembles in realization that the situation has spiraled far beyond a survival exercise. Aang strikes at the demon's weakness. He refuses to wait for a formal invitation to die, surging through a cloud of jagged red energy that overrides his physical agony. A silhouette of pure speed cuts through the crimson haze, moving with a grounded precision that catches the Fin demon off guard. Aang lunges forward, his eyes locked onto a single, critical flaw in the beast's armored hide. A weakness, he mutters, his blade blurring toward a gap in the demon's defenses. This is a total skill check delivered by a ghost who has already mastered the art of the kill. The hunter has officially become the hunted. Aang dives toward the demon's joints. He screams that he'll tear the creature's damn limbs off as he pivots in midair. His blade slices through the atmosphere with a desperate, jagged energy that crackles against the demon's hide. This isn't a refined duel anymore. It's a gritty street fight for survival. Aang's crimson aura flares, matching the feral intensity of an opponent that should be way out of his league. He aims for the vulnerable gaps in the armor, knowing one clean hit could end this. Every strike is a calculated gamble against a beast that towers over his fragile frame. Blood streaks across Aang's defiant face. He spits out a lethal taunt, reminding the creature it's just a lowly one-fin demon. Even in this trash body, his ancient warrior pride remains absolutely untouchable. Then, the world spins. A thunderous impact slams him into the rocky terrain, the force nearly snapping his spine like a dry twig. He coughs up crimson, his golden eyes flickering as the sheer weight of a finned monster's strength finally hits home. This isn't a training dummy. It is a death sentence delivered with the weight of a mountain. Smoke rises from the impact crater. Aang slumps against the jagged rocks, gasping for air as his muscles begin to redline and fail. The demon stands tall, a twisted, predatory smirk forming behind its bone mask. It reveals a terrifying secret. It's a wood type. Thick green vines and mana begin to wrap around its severed wounds like living stitches. The beast mends its own mangled flesh in a matter of seconds. Aang's heart sinks as he realizes the rules of the hunt just changed. A healing factor on a Fin demon is a total nightmare for a low-tier recruit. The demon stares at the fallen boy. It mocks Aang for his desperate struggle, looming over him with the suffocating arrogance of a superior species. Suddenly, the monster launches a final, high-speed assault to finish the job. Jagged white light tears through the gray fog as the demon strikes with a flurry of lethal shards. Aang barely has time to brace himself before the entire area is engulfed in a blinding blur of mana. The trial just turned into a slaughterhouse, and the fallen legend is officially out of time. A blur of motion slams Aang backward. The demonic predator closes the gap instantly, its clawed hand clamping around his throat like a vice. Aang freezes as the beast's sheer physical pressure locks his joints in place. The monster tilts its head, its distorted voice rasping that it doesn't understand him. It dismisses his existence with a cold command to forget it all. A massive claw looms over his face, ready to crush his skull into the dirt. The legendary soul is trapped in a body that can't even twitch. Aang stares at the foggy ground. Silhouettes of Situ Lu and Suejo Yuhui flicker in the distance as his consciousness begins to slip. He mutters a bitter laugh about reincarnating just to die in a nameless pit. Blood drips from his chin, staining the dry earth a dark, metallic crimson. He whispers an apology to his teammates, feeling the crushing weight of his failure. But then, a surge of raw, jagged spite boils over within his chest. He refuses to accept this end. You bastard. The monster opens its massive jaws. It mocks the weak human, declaring this kill is the key to its evolution. The beast lunges forward, teeth bared to swallow him whole. Suddenly, Aang's golden eyes flare with a terrifying, crimson intensity. You'll eat me, he growls, his voice vibrating with ancient, lethal power. A pillar of red energy erupts from his frame, shattering the ground into jagged shards. The hunter just became the prey. Aang stands tall in the center of the red storm. Red energy swirls around Aang. He can't believe he is forced to burn the last sliver of his legendary consciousness just to survive this encounter. The demonic wolf lets out a pathetic whimper as a terrifying presence descends upon the clearing. This isn't just a flicker of mana. It is the weight of 1,000 wars crushing the air out of the beast's lungs. Panic ripples through the monster's feral mind as it realizes the prey has vanished. On the remote scanners, the power level spikes into the impossible range. Observers scream about 5-finned or even 6-finned threats appearing in a low-level zone. The atmosphere turns into a suffocating shroud of crimson light. A massive energy pillar erupts. Aang becomes the center of a violent, vertical storm that pierces the very clouds above the wasteland. The ground beneath his boots disintegrates into jagged shards and fine dust. This isn't a mere recruit passing a test. This is a king reclaiming his throne with interest. The sheer output of mana warps the space around him, creating a vacuum of pure destruction. Every tree and stone in the vicinity is leveled by the radiating shockwave. The world itself seems to hold its breath in the face of this anomaly. It is an absolute peak of power that no one expected from a bottom-tier loser. Monsters disintegrate in the light. The alpha wolf has no time to scream as the red energy tears through its flesh like a hot wire through wax. Its eyes bulge in a final, agonizing realization of its own insignificance. A blinding white flash consumes the entire frame, erasing the battlefield from existence for a split second. When the light finally fades, only scorched earth and the smell of ozone remain. Ong stands in the center of the ruin, his silhouette flickering with the dying embers of his soul. The hunt is over. The legend is back. A red demon descends in light. The air turns heavy as a terrifying presence manifests, claiming to be the only 8-finned demon in existence. This is the Crimson-Finned King, a title that carries the weight of 1,000 slaughtered armies. He demands absolute submission, his voice echoing with a command that forces the very soul to buckle. As he floats downward, bathed in an eerie radiance, he orders everyone to speak his name. His golden eyes flare with a predatory light that makes the previous monsters look like harmless pets. This isn't just a high-level threat, it's the apex predator of the demonic hierarchy returned to claim his throne. Pale face with long white hair. The demon's face is a mask of cold, immortal beauty framed by jagged red horns. He stares down at the world with a detached arrogance that only comes from being an undisputed ruler of the abyss. Red hands claw at the periphery of his aura, symbolizing the countless lives consumed to fuel his ascension. This 8-finned king is a living disaster, a creature whose mere presence should be impossible in a low-level testing zone. The sheer mana density radiating from his frame begins to warp the surrounding reality. It's a chilling reminder of the gap between human ambition and demonic perfection. A sharp eye watches through dust. The scene shifts abruptly as the dust of the trial grounds begins to settle. Amidst the wreckage, a single, sharp eye narrows with lethal intent, cutting through the haze like a blade. The chaos of the assessment continues, but the atmosphere has fundamentally shifted since the king's shadow loomed over the field. On remains grounded, his instincts vibrating at the arrival of such a high-tier monster. He isn't paralyzed by the sudden spike in demonic pressure, he's calculating his next move. The line between a training exercise and a massacre has just been erased. Every breath now tastes like the coming storm. On kicks a green demon. A massive impact sends shockwaves through the dirt as On continues his brutal assault. He isn't holding back, moving with a speed that turns his frame into a blur of lethal intent. The green monster barely has time to register the threat before a follow-up strike shatters its guard. This isn't just a fight, it's a statement of raw dominance. These creatures are being systematically dismantled by a man who refuses to be limited by a weak body. Every movement is a calculated step toward total battlefield control. A bearded officer stands alone. He finishes his patrol, noting that the area only held 2 finned demons, which should have been a simple cleanup. His yellow eyes narrow as he realizes the recruits are nowhere to be found. This professional calm is his baseline, the mark of a veteran who has seen too many rookie mistakes. But even his experience can't prepare him for the anomaly currently brewing. He expects a routine report, unaware that the social order of the academy is about to be nuked from orbit. Red light erupts into the sky. The officer freezes, his face twisting in absolute shock as a pillar of crimson mana tears through the clouds. This isn't a training spark, it's a cataclysmic energy wave that shouldn't exist in a low-level trial. He stares toward the horizon, demanding to know what kind of monster could generate such a terrifying pulse. The sheer pressure of the wave vibrates through the ground, marking the exact spot where On is rewriting the rules of power. This is the moment the top brass realizes they aren't looking at a student, but a legend reborn. Dust settles around a massive crater. From the center of the impact, a terrifying presence rises, its claws clicking against the scorched stone as it assumes a humanoid form. This is the 8-finned king. He towers over a lesser demon that's currently groveling in the dirt, paralyzed by the sheer weight of a superior soul. Red energy pulses through the air, signaling a return that was never supposed to happen. The smaller beast can barely stutter out a title as the sovereign's mana crushes the air out of its lungs. The social hierarchy of the abyss has just been violently restored. The king gazes at the dark sky. He lets out a dry laugh, mocking the fact that the horizon remains just as bleak as the day he vanished. His hand reaches out, gripping the jagged jaw of his informant with a casual, bone-chilling pressure that signals instant death. The informant shakes, realizing his life is a coin toss in the hands of a legend. He demands to know if the 5 original demon lords still hold their thrones. The creature shrieks in terror, desperately confirming that those 5 kings have maintained their positions without change. These rulers have grown soft while the true nightmare was rotting in the dark. A predatory smile twists the king's face. He finds it absolutely hilarious that his former rivals are living in peace while he suffered in exile. His golden eye flares with a lethal, concentrated heat as his fangs catch the dim light of the wasteland. Suddenly, the atmosphere screams. Jagged red energy severs the silence, pulverizing the surrounding stone in a blinding flash of mana. The ground craters under his sheer spite. He hasn't forgotten the betrayal from 60 years ago. The debt is due. The legend is back to collect every drop of blood they owe him. Red Demon King looks down coldly. The Crimson-Finned King sneers at the pathetic shell he's currently piloting, having expected a vessel worthy of his name. Instead, he's trapped in a body that feels like lead. This is a total disappointment. Ancient eyes narrow, realizing his last sliver of consciousness is being wasted on a fight this ridiculous. His true return will have to wait for a complete awakening. Until then, he's just a tiger in a cage, waiting for the bars to rust. Lesser demon bows in absolute terror. The king's patience is reaching its limit as he stares at the shaking monster before him. He needs this strongest soldier to finally wake up and process the Finn's memories buried in his soul. The kneeling beast realizes these memories are the key to the ultimate evolution. In the Dark Clan, Finns are the only currency that matters. More Finns mean more power. Every new Finn is a step toward becoming a king of the wasteland. The air is thick with the weight of his legacy. Tall Red King walks through dust. He strides forward with a terrifying grace, reminding the world why his kind stands at the top. Most demons have to resort to cannibalistic slaughter, devouring their own brothers of the same level just to crawl up the ranks. But the king is different. This predator doesn't play by the standard rules of the abyss. He just needs to consume higher-level demons to steal their memories and skip the grind entirely. It's a total power-scaling nightmare that breaks every law of nature. The social gap has become a canyon. Stat-checked and slaughtered. The Crimson King towers over the wreckage. He watches the dust settle, whispering about the necessity of evolution. This isn't just a battlefield, it's his personal garden of growth. Below him, the surviving demons collapse in total terror. They scream for mercy. They pledge their very souls. King, they stammer, terrified by the suffocating, metallic weight of his presence. He doesn't even look at them. They are nothing but tools to be discarded. The social gap between them is infinite. One flick of his finger would erase their existence. A violent red light consumes the frame. The king's face is a mask of pure, immortal arrogance. He declares the groveling grunts completely unworthy of his presence. His golden eyes lock onto the broken, bleeding form of Ong. Suddenly, a glowing DNA strand flickers into life between them. It pulses with a rhythmic, sickening heat. This is the first step of a grand, terrifying design. He isn't here to finish the boy. He's here to upgrade him. The king prepares a gift that would kill a normal human instantly. It's a total, high-tier system breaker. The king lifts On by the collar. Blood streaks the boy's pale, unconscious face as he dangles like a ragdoll in the wind. The monster smirks, demanding the human warrior awaken toward the legendary 8th Finn. He doesn't want a weakling. He wants a peer he can eventually consume. The air hums with the sound of demonic mana being forced into a human shell. A blinding flash signals the start of the absorption. The pathetic, low-tier body is being rewritten. It is a terrifying, long-term investment. The legend is being forged in demonic fire. When he wakes up, the world won't recognize him. On sits in a dark crater. He mutters about awakening from his long slumber as red sparks dance through the air like dying embers. A blinding light erupts from his chest, signaling the core's total ignition. Inside his body, biological strands weave together with demonic mana in a violent, high-speed dance. This isn't just healing, it's a total structural rewrite. The pathetic recruit is being replaced by something ancient and terrifying. A winged demon floats over On. The crimson-finned king hovers in a fetal position, shrouded in a cocoon of jagged red energy. On screams as the sheer pressure of the king's soul fuses with his own fragile frame. Every nerve ending burns with the weight of this unholy pact. A distorted voice echoes through the dark void, declaring him the new king. The hierarchy of the wasteland just found its apex predator. He is no longer just a recruit, he is a vessel for a disaster. Bloodied On lies on the ground. He gasps for air, his mind reeling from the realization of the king's overwhelming power. Images of a woman waiting for him to return flash across his fading consciousness, fueling his will. He refuses to let the abyss claim him yet. He grips his own hand with bone-snapping force, vowing to get everyone out of this hell alive. The technical gap is gone. Only raw, stubborn survival remains in the wreckage. Ji Yaotang screams in fury. The commander's yellow eye glows with a manic, bloodshot intensity as he scans the fresh carnage. Ji Yaotang towers over the smoking wreckage, his face twisted in a mask of pure disbelief and exhaustion. He demands to know why Ong is the only one who survived the demonic slaughter. The silence of the ruins is deafening. The social order of the academy is shattered. A student has done the impossible, and the elite are finally terrified. Golden eyes snap open in darkness. On gasps for air, his hand flying to his forehead as cold sweat soaks through the thin hospital sheets. He mutters to himself that it was all just a nightmare, desperate to believe the slaughter was a lie. But as his vision clears, the crushing weight of those ancient memories tells a far more dangerous story. He is lying on a medical cot in the academy barracks, the ceiling fan humming a steady, grounding rhythm. He survived the encounter, but his legendary soul is still reeling from the physical cost of that power output. Situ Lu stands over the bed. Her voice cracks with relief as she shouts that Brother Ong is finally awake after the trial. Suejo Yuhui and the rest of the squad crowd the small infirmary space with faces full of genuine concern. Ong looks at them, his voice trailing off as he realizes his teammates aren't just corpses in a demon nest. Situ Lu doesn't give him a second to breathe, leaning in until her face is inches from his nose. Ong yells at her to get back, but she just demands to know why his hair has completely changed color. Ong sits up on the cot. He ignores the question about his new look, demanding to know if all three of them truly made it back safely. He recalls being taken to that one Fin Demon's cave before everything went dark. Before the rookies can explain their escape, a massive shadow looms behind the privacy curtain. The fabric is ripped aside with a thunderous crack that stops everyone's heart. Ji Yaotang stares down at the recruit with a bloodshot, predatory intensity that screams of military pressure. He demands a full explanation of what happened in that cave, looking for the truth behind the impossible. Ji Yaotang looms over medical beds. The air in the recovery ward turns ice cold as the captain stares down the 4 survivors. His presence alone is a physical weight, drowning out the hum of hospital machinery as he demands the truth about the cave. His yellow eye bores into the recruits like a spotlight, hunting for any sign of a lie. He isn't asking for a report, he's hunting for the anomaly that destroyed a Fin Demon. To these rookies, he is no longer just a teacher, but a predator gauging their worth. Demonic faces swirl in a red void. As the interrogation deepens, the memory of that crimson evolution flashes behind Aang's eyes. A twisted, half-human reflection stares back from the darkness, reminding him of the ticking mana bomb buried in his soul. This isn't a secret he can share with the military brass without ending up on an autopsy table. He maintains a stony, detached mask, hiding the ancient predator that nearly consumed his frame. The social gap between recruit and captain remains wide, but the gap in hidden power is now infinite. Dada Jiao smirks at the blushing captain. The heavy atmosphere is suddenly nuked by a single, mocking nickname that shatters the commander's aura. The red-haired officer reveals that Tang Tang was the one who personally carried the rookies back to safety. The legendary, stone-faced Ji Yaotang turns bright red, screaming at her to never use that name in front of the students. Situ Lu and the others stare in stunned silence, watching their terrifying superior get publicly roasted by his colleague. The fearsome war hero is reduced to a flustered joke in seconds. Aang sits quietly in his recovery ward. Amidst the petty bickering, the former king remains an anchor of calm in the chaotic room. He watches the social power play with a veteran's focus, his mind already calculating the next phase of his training. The physical toll of the evolution is heavy, but surviving the wasteland has officially secured his place in the academy's hierarchy. He doesn't join the laughter. He simply waits for the military to leave so he can begin reclaiming his true strength. For recruits lie on ground. The recovery team counts their lucky stars that the high-tier predator vanished before they arrived. Situ Lu and the rest of the squad wake up with a total memory wipe, unable to explain how they escaped the cave alive. Aang eventually sits up in his hospital bed, gripping a small hand mirror with trembling fingers. His hair is different now, streaked with sharp highlights that signify his recent demonic evolution. He realizes reincarnation is a messy process that is studious rookie perfectly. Dada Jiao laughs, labeling him a theory type, and encourages Ji Yaotang to train such a splendid warrior. Aang hides his true nature behind a mask of curiosity, immediately asking how his formal test results look. He is expertly manipulating the perception of the elite officers while keeping his legendary past buried. Pink-haired Suejo Yuhui smiles. She cheers that they are still a team thanks to Ji Yaotang's intervention, viewing their survival as a twist of fate. However, the silver-haired Situ Lu cuts through the optimism with a cold dose of reality. She stares at Aang, noting that their squad is already miles behind the competition. Ji Yaotang confirms the grim news, explaining that while the boy was out, the other recruits were stacking kills. Because Aang has been unconscious for 3 days, their team currently sits at a pathetic 0 points. The social hierarchy of the academy is already leaving them in the dust, and the elites are looking down on them as dead weight. Aang adjusts his white gloves. He repeats the news in total disbelief, realizing he's been sidelined for 72 hours while the world moved on. The camera pans over the massive academy building as the weight of his situation finally sinks in. Outside, the other students are likely laughing at the squad that couldn't even stay awake for the first week. Situ Lu watches him from the shadows, her long silver hair flowing as she measures his reaction. Aang doesn't panic. Instead, he stands up and tightens his gear with a sharp, lethal smirk. The 0-point start doesn't scare a former king. It just means he has more people to humiliate on his way to the top. Crowds watch new warriors pass by. Whispers ripple through the plaza as civilians spot Captain Ji Yaotang leading the fresh recruits toward the inner sanctum. People can't believe how young these fighters look, wondering if they are truly ready for the front lines after only 3 days. Ji Yaotang stops his stride and offers a rare word of congratulations, formally welcoming them into the ranks of humanity's protectors. He specifically notes that returning alive from a clash with a one-fin demon is a feat worthy of genuine respect. For the recruits, the social ladder is finally shifting. They aren't just students anymore. They are the elite hope of a region under siege. Recruits stand tall under a blue sky. Ji Yaotang clarifies that these 4 have been delegated directly under his personal care moving forward. He manages 9 different squads, and he makes it clear that he expects this specific group the next batch of failures arrives. This academy uses a brutal social filter to ensure only the strongest climb. The commander explains that constant competition is the only way to keep up with the evolving demon threat. He officially announces Situ Lu as the team leader because she scored the highest points in the preliminary test. The hierarchy is set by the numbers on a screen, leaving no room for debate. Recruits stand in the courtyard. The commander asks if there are any objections to his choice. One recruit immediately sucks up, praising Situ Lu for being meticulous. Suejo Yuhui chimes in with a smile, calling her leader strong. Meanwhile, Aang's blood boils as he stares at the ground in a silent rage. He was the strongest warrior humanity ever knew, a king whose name made the abyss tremble. Now, he's being stat-checked by a girl who hasn't seen a real war. This pathetic body is holding his reputation hostage while the elites gloat. Black boots step on tile. Situ Lu accepts the role with a cold, predatory confidence, declaring they will definitely finish the mission. She looks down at the squad with a sharp gaze, wondering who else the instructors could possibly have chosen. To her, this isn't just a promotion, it's a confirmation of her natural superiority over the trash in her unit. The sun hangs high over the fortress, casting long shadows across the stone plaza. There is no time for celebration in a world that never stops bleeding. A commander walks away. He tells the rookies to check the rankings of the other squads while they still have the chance. He warns them that the real challenge begins once they sink their nano-wing battlesuits for actual combat. Survival depends on how well they adapt to the gear and the pressure of the wasteland. With a sharp bark, he dismisses the group, his silhouette fading into the industrial backdrop. The recruits shout their compliance in unison, their voices echoing through the cold alleyways. The games are over. The hunt is about to begin. The team walks through the city. Situ Lu urges the squad toward the mission board, noting they are already 3 days behind the leading teams. She suddenly stops the group in their tracks, her expression hardening as she declares something more important must happen first. Her mind is actually a storm of anxiety, fearing her reputation as a perfect leader is about to crumble over a rookie mistake. It's a total fake-out. She just wants to snap the team's first official photo. Suejo Yuhui happily produces a camera, her pink hair bobbing as she prepares for the shot. Aang watches his eccentric teammates, feeling a rare moment of peace as he admits this group isn't bad. The camera flashes, capturing a rare smile before the world goes back to hell. Officers stand on a high balcony. Dada Jiao and Ji Yaotang overlook the wasteland, dissecting the violent reports coming from the front lines. The demons found near the cave didn't just die, they were completely obliterated from the inside out. Splatters of unknown demonic blood cover the stone, suggesting a power level that shouldn't exist among the recruits. Xiao clicks a lighter, his purple gaze fixing on the group below as he questions the official narrative. He flatly asks if these 4 kids are truly capable of such a tactical massacre. He is specifically suspicious of Aang, noting that his own supernatural senses are picking up a terrifying scent. To the world, Aang is a bottom-tier loser, but Xiao sees the shadow of a predator. The secret of the reincarnated king is finally starting to leak. Blue-haired officer smokes a cigarette. Xiao isn't letting his suspicion drop, his gaze fixed on the anomaly that is on Dada Jiao tries to lighten the mood, wrapping her arms around a brooding Tang Tang in a playful hug. She tells him he's overthinking the situation as long as the kids are safe. Tang Tang isn't laughing, his white eyes staring into the distance with a grim intensity. They eventually agree on a plan. Keep a close watch on the boy and report any movement that doesn't fit a rookie. Aang stares at the mission board. He spots a cluster of A-rank assignments and pauses to calculate his next move. Suejo Yuhui and Situ Lu quickly crowd around him, their voices thick with genuine concern. They explain that A-rank missions are the absolute peak of difficulty for recruits like them. While B-rank and C-rank tasks are safe, these high-tier hunts offer 10 points because they usually end in blood. The social gap between a standard soldier and an A-rank survivor is a canyon most never cross. Black-gloved hand grabs 3 papers. Situ Lu warns that these missions lead to severe casualties, but the words bounce off Aang's back. He doesn't just pick one. He tears all 3 A-rank assignments off the board in one go. The surrounding air goes silent as the other recruits struggle to process the sheer arrogance of the move. He turns back with a bored expression, declaring they should just take them all. This isn't a suicide mission to him. It's a total stat check. The former king is done playing around in the dirt.